Hey, listen carefully because you might pick up EVPs.
Oh, I know, yeah. In your haunted
Really?
house.
You never know. Hey, if you're
I'm going to
here,
have to listen through the whole thing anyway.
if you're here, there you go. Make it known.
This is a free invitation.
Yeah, is it running?
Yeah.
All right. So if you're here,
yeah,
talking to the machine,
you
even
can,
when we're talking,
yeah.
doesn't matter. We welcome it. We encourage it. All right.
So yeah, this is Bizarre Base podcast or broadcast. Sorry.
Yes.
I like the alliteration with that.
Yes,
the BBB.
I like the BBB.
So
I'm the Better Business Bureau, BBB.
So do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Who am I? So my name is Laurie Notch, and I am an adjunct professor in anthropology and sociology over at Southern Maine Community College in South Portland, Maine. I've actually been an educator in higher education for a good going on 40 years. Holy cow.
Okay.
What can I say? So I guess my major field of interest is anthropology or cultural anthropology. It wasn't what I originally went into. When I was an undergrad, I graduated with 2 degrees, one in English language literature and the other in French language literature, but I was more focused on linguistics and computer-assisted language learning. I was designing software.
Oh, right.
Back in the early days of software, I was designing software for language learning.
What era was that?
Oh, God. Late 70s, early 80s. Huh. Yeah, I graduated in 80.
Yeah.
So I'm writing software when software was just coming out. That was an experience. And I love linguistics. I love languages and culture. And I started teaching right after I graduated from a state university in Minnesota, St. Cloud State. And then I got hired as an adjunct when I was like 23 years old. And I was working as an outreach coordinator with the immigrant community there because we had a lot of people coming from Iran and Vietnam, and so I was helping them with adjustments and stuff, getting their lives in order here in the United States. I spoke French, but I was learning Farsi. I was very good at languages. I take courses in 5 languages, and I spoke Russian and Danish and all kinds of things. But
well, I think you said in the other Bigfoot one, you lived in Soviet Russia.
That was a short stint, and that was for a language study program.
That's what I figured.
In the Soviet Union. So my Russian, what I speak of it is communist Russian, because that was the rhetoric of the day. That was in the late 70s. And I think Brezhnev was in office then. I remember when after I graduated, I got into social work and teaching French.
Right.
French was the thing. But the Reagan came in and cut all this funding for these kinds of programs. So I'm out living in my car in winter in Minnesota. Imagine that.
Jeez.
And I didn't know what to do. And somebody from a church whose parking lot I used to park in, figuring out what am I going to do. He came out with, we got to know each other. He was a pastor. And he said, I've got lots of connections with, given your background and the fact that I already traveled and lived in many countries by then. He got me a job with a group that would do development work in Africa.
Oh, yeah.
So in 1982, I went to Cameroon in West Africa, and I stayed there for almost 3.5 years, I think it was. And came back to the States, and I had married a guy from Cameroon.
Yeah.
We both come back, and I had colleagues from National Geographic. Interestingly enough, I worked with them in Cameroon, and they were working in Washington, D.C., National Zoo. I come back to the States, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I got a husband, I don't know what I'm going to do. He wants to go to medical school. So by 85, I believe we moved to Washington, D.C. I, met up with my Nat Geo guys, but they were on their way to wherever. They were leaving. And so I'm sitting here in D.C. like, now what? And oddly enough, I saw a job advert. I did everything. I did telemarketing. I did anything I could to survive. And I saw a job advert from American University. They needed somebody to work in their language laboratory. They needed a supervisor. All right, I said, what the hey, I'm going to give it a shot. I remember that interview. The guy is asking me questions like, do you know the difference between a micro plug and an RCA plug? And I told the guy, I've been living in West Africa for the last, 3 years. I haven't seen electricity in 3 years, so I wouldn't even know what a regular plug looks like anymore. But he thought that was funny. He hired me. And as a result, I was there, and I had to work with all these different departments. I worked with the language department, and because it was a language lab where people would come in from the State Department. This is in Washington, D.C. We had language programs. I even got a contract to teach French to Peace Corps because I just come from that part of the world, and so I'm working with Peace Corps. I'm running being a supervisor of the language lab, and AU had a very good incentive for its employees to get a free education. Ooh. You're talking a $60,000 education for free because you work there. But what should I do with myself? And I thought, well, French or English again. And somebody recommended the anthropology department, and I really wasn't sure about that. So I did. I said, okay, let me check it out. And I just took a couple of courses, like what we call continuing ed, or I'll take a couple of courses. Let me sit in, let me see what it is. And I liked it. Maybe I didn't like some of the, what's the word? I'm not really into metric analytics and stuff like that, which is very important in social science. I'm not like that. And I do remember there was some resistance from some of the faculty, like, you're not really, material, blah, blah, blah.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. It just because I've never been the type, although I love science and I did a lot of physics in my undergrad work. I almost took a minor in physics. And I was really good with the computer stuff, but with logic and those kind of systems. I still don't know what it is. I don't embrace statistical analysis. I don't do that. I don't think like that. And I'm not micromanaging about things. I'm very broad brush. Maybe too much of a generalist, and they don't like that. I don't know. I got some resistance after my first semester, and then I went to a department open house. I'll never forget. So I'm at American University. I go to the open house, and I'm just talking to people in the grad program, and the graduate studies. And they said, well, what's your background? What's your field? And I said, well, linguistics. And the chair of the department heard that from across the room, and I remember he just shot over to me and made a beeline. Are you a linguist? Did I hear you right? Are you a linguist? We need you. Yeah. Boom, you're in.
Wow.
Whoa. And some people didn't like it. Some people don't like it, but he really, really curried favor with me, and I did a lot of research and stuff for him. Wow. But yeah, that got me in, and for some weird reason now I'm suddenly learning applied anthropology.
Right.
Okay. I do 2 years of that. I get through it all. And then I was offered to a PhD. I was offered all that. But I was so burned out from working and trying to survive on poverty wages, and I was honored. I got this great education, but no, I'm out of here. And I went to South Korea. I'm like, somebody had a friend who ran a school, and I'm like, okay, boom, I'm on a plane, I'm gone. I went out. And that was when I think Daddy Bush was president. There was part of that too. It was like, I don't want to be here during these political regimes.
You just left.
Give me a ticket, I'm gone. I traveled with like $20 on me. That's all I ever had. Never had anything, and I'm on the plane, I'm gone. And I went to South Korea, and I started out, teaching English as a second language, or a foreign language actually. And it was a very prestigious academy. And oh my gosh, that's when the murder happened. My first year in Korea, there was a murder and a suicide among my colleagues, and I was there for all that fun and games. Yeah, talk about strangeness. I was literally every day sitting across from an alleged serial killer who what still happened? So I went to Korea in February of 1988, and in March of 88, there were always new teachers coming in. They were coming in from all over, mostly the United States, some from Canada, some from Australia, England. Teachers, it was a real turnstile. They'd come and go, come and go. Some would come, take one good look around Seoul, Korea in the 80s, and like, oh, hell no, and get on the plane in 3 days and go back. It was common. I didn't have those issues, even though the day I arrived, there was massive protests going on. These Korean students had taken the American embassy. They had seized, they were in it. Yeah. And I remember coming out of the airport, and there's all these Darth Vaders with their riot gear and the tear gas, and welcome to South Korea. It was quite interesting. And I, was just there to teach English. I taught professionals. I taught Fulbright scholars, economists, international businessmen. I didn't teach kids, again, or university students. Very high caliber people, and it was very enlightening. But we had, and I worked for the Olympics in 1988. Oh, really? Yeah, I pushed for it, and I got it, and I was a protocol officer because I spoke all those languages, and they needed interpreters. And I did a lot. I did a lot of research. I boned up I got my Korean in better shape. I pushed hard, and I spent about 6 months before the games doing training, language training in French and English. And I worked with, again, some really high-end muck-de-mucks, heads of Samsung and I mean, I'm working with these guys. And when the games happened in October of '88, I'm running around. I was on the archery field. That's where they put me, which was fine. I had a good background in archery. So I'm running around doing all this stuff. It was very, very busy. And I'm working full time while I'm doing that. So imagine. But right around October, okay, so I got to backtrack. Yeah. In March of '88, I remembered there were these two women that had arrived from Seattle, the Seattle area. And I was always like the welcome wagon kind of person. Hey, I've only been here a month more than you, but let's go out and I'll tell you what I know. And one of them, she was a little Miss Know-It-All. She knew everything already. I'm like, okay, fine, I don't need to bother with you. Yeah. And then the other one I took out, we went on an outing one day. We went out to see the folk village, where they do reenactments of Korean life during the Chosun dynasty. It was in March, late March, and so weather was still a little chilly. The trees were still bare. It was about an hour train ride outside of Seoul. It was Sunday, I believe, and so she and I went. Her name was Kathy Patrick. And so Kathy was very tall. She was pretty tall, if I remember. I'm 5'2", so anybody's tall. But she looked to be she had to be at least 5'10" or something. She was a pretty tall, gangly person, short cropped hair, everything. And not that didn't matter at this point, but it does matter later. So we went out this day in late March and had a nice afternoon, and there really wasn't a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. We saw the folk village, and it was pretty dead, to be honest. But we had to take the evening train or the late afternoon train back into Seoul. And I will never forget, that train by 4:00 in the afternoon was packed with a lot of drunk Korean men.
Oh yeah,
because they like to drink. Oh boy, they put down their soju. So they're you are just crammed in this subway or this train with these drunken men falling asleep on you, hanging all over you. I'm laughing my ass off. I think this is so ridiculous. But I saw her. She was not. She did not find it funny. But I remember seeing a look in her eye that scared the crap out of me. I can't describe. I mean, I can't tell you, but everything in me. It was like a reverse zoom shot in the film business. Yeah. It's like here the camera is zooming in but pulling in the back.
Right,
that like that scene in Jaws. It was like that.
Wow.
And I just suddenly something told me, this is not good. There is something wrong with this person. And I'm not a person, we're taught, don't make judgments, book by its cover, don't judge a book by its cover. But something just shot through me in that crazy train ride with her. And I made it my mission. I am not going to have anything to do with her again. And I needed to kind of do this politely. I tried. We were a very small community. At that time in South Korea, the only foreigners you really saw were the American military and maybe some of the diplomatic corps. There were very, very few of us, and we lived in Korean neighborhoods. We lived in apartments. I mean, we were so rare that, they'd want to come up and, touch you. And I had a little boy in my neighborhood who'd come out every morning waiting for me, and he'd bow very deeply to me. And wasn't common to see us, but she freaked me out. And here's a person who'd been in Peace Corps. See, I think what the incongruity was, she told me how she'd spent all this time in Peace Corps, and she'd been to Thailand and Nepal and all these, and I've been to a lot of, I guess, the developing world, and how do you get freaked out with these crowded trains? You would have had worse than that in those countries, riding in bush taxis, and I've been there. I'm like, it's not comfortable, but you gotta laugh. I mean, you can't get all freaked out about this. Why was she freaking out about something? Was it the male thing? Was it the men she had an issue with? I don't know. It just didn't fit in my mind. So, we get back and we just go back and do our job and blah, blah, blah. And I just did everything I could not to be friendly. But she started hooking up with the other one, the Miss Know-It-All. They started becoming tight. Eventually, I call them Dracula and Renfield. That's kind of what they were like. And also, she got real friendly with my flatmate, who was on her way out. She was going back to the States. She started getting real buddy-buddy with my flatmate, who I really didn't care for. When I'm there, my apartment was just that's where you slept. Right. I was in a new country. I was young. I'm like, go, up every mountain, do this, do that. I'm going fishing with my Korean students. I'm doing, I'm just on the go. I didn't even want to, I don't want to associate with Americans. Why would I do that? I'm learning Korean language. I'm working for the Olympics, everything. But I remember on several occasions catching her and my flatmate doing something that looked like cocaine. It could have been hiropong, which is kind of a meth that was around. There definitely was pot smoking, all highly illegal. I'm sitting there.
I imagine,
I mean, I'll drink the local hooch, but that's legal.
Right.
All right? But you don't have that stuff. That puts you at great risk when you're living abroad.
Was it them that brought it, or did they get it from locals?
You can get it. No, this is all stuff that Koreans. There's a criminal element, they grows it and sells it, and they know these Americans want it. I mean, I knew a guy who would I don't know how he got it, but he got acid, and I'm like, well, that's your business, I ain't nothing to do with that. So, but I would witness them doing this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, fine, I'm going to bed now, or I'm going out again.
Yeah, not
I did not want to be around, because you didn't know who's watching you.
Oh, yeah.
And I am not going to be guilty by association.
Right.
So for several months, because I was very, very busy, this Kathy person, she hadn't been in, like I said, I had seniority on her and everything, but suddenly she's now our boss. And then I got a new flatmate. We called her Bond Girl. She looks like something from James Bond. Oh, yeah. She was a very exquisite, tall, blonde. She was a collegiate athlete in her day, swimming, I think. She also got to work for the Olympics because she started dating some journalist. I don't know. It was kind of funny how we all... But she shared my apartment with me. We traveled around Korea. We got along fine. But she was a little, I'm just going to say, pretty self-absorbed kind of thing. And she fell in with the Dracula Renfield crowd. They wanted to be the core. I called them the human black holes. They wanted to be the whole core group. They wanted everybody hovering around them, going to their parties. Laurie don't play, so Laurie was now on the outs. And Kathy, who I could watch, again, I'm observing her, how she's muscling her way into a position of seniority. She convinced the Korean staff of this academy that they needed some special administrator. She had convinced the administrator. They created a position for her. Just all her machination. And then when she got into that position, she started taking it out on people she didn't like as a superior.
Right.
She tried to get me in trouble all the time. Made all kinds of rumors. In fact, so we're going back to her height and my height. It was October. I was running a big Halloween thing. And now Halloween is not a Korean deal. It's our culture. But I got all my students, or most of them, really excited. And I said, we got permission to turn this 5-story building into a haunted attraction with whatever you got. I had engineers. I had electrical engineers. You guys can come up with some cool effects and mechanics. And we're going to tell Korean ghost stories. So that way I got to learn a lot about the Korean folklore. Right. So we had the toilet ghost. That's a famous one. And we had the different types of female phantoms.
Right. There was something you said about them having a lot of female
most bad evil spirits, and most spirits are evil over there, but most evil, nasty spirits are female. And I asked Korean men, why is it that all your horrible ghosts are female? Well, do you blame them? Look at how we treat our women in our culture. Right. And they admitted it.
Yeah.
You admit that? Wow. Yeah, they're out for revenge. Wow. You can't blame them.
Right, yeah.
So we had 5 floors of this building that we were rigging and setting up and making props for. It was really exciting. And and the Olympics were over by then. Right. This is October. We had this new teacher who, again, her Caroline, she had just arrived when the Olympic Games were ending in mid-October. I don't think neither she nor Kathy had anything to do with what this was, but Kathy hated it to pieces. And I will never forget, I'm in the basement of our building. We had classrooms in the basement. It wasn't like it was a creepy basement. It was just a basement with rooms. And I was checking on some stuff down there for our big event. And Kathy got me alone in that basement. And again, she's tall and I'm not.
Right.
And then, like a tiny little skinny thing too. And she threatened me. She started encroaching on my space and trying to tell me she knows she was accusing me of sleeping with students, which wasn't true. And she was accusing me of all kinds of crap. And I remember, thank God I grew up in Jersey. I remember her physically just like a man would do.
Right, yeah.
Oh my God, it was just like, what? And I'm just going to say I went Jersey on her ass. I don't think I physically touched her. I don't remember. But I made her back up so hard and fast, she went right through the drywall.
Yeah.
She punched a hole in the drywall. That's a lot of force. Now, Korean people that I knew by then all felt that I had some amazing chi, which is your life energy. They were acupuncturists were afraid of my chi, and I had a nickname that was coming. It hadn't come quite yet, but Typhoon. I had this nickname because I had this fierceness. I could, I had a lot of energy. And again, I don't recall physically touching her, but I scared the crap out of her, and I don't remember what I said or what I did. I remember her just flying backward into that wall. And then she did not directly mess with me again. But imagine I'm alone in the basement with her. I had no idea, though. I just thought she's one of those, she's a prick, okay? I mean, women can be pricks too, right? She's a freaking jerk, and she's a megalomaniac control freak, and I don't need that. And no, nobody does that. So she tried so hard. She got about 6 of our colleagues fired for no reason. It was deplorable. I don't like you, or you're not going to be in my little enclave. You're out. And it was sad, because it was hurtful. I'm still in touch with one of the gentlemen that she was so mean to. So that's October, and then we had our big Halloween. I mean, they were lined up around the street. It was a big success, and it wasn't about money or anything. It was free, but it was just a cultural exchange, and I got a lot of kudos for that. And then everything went back to normal, and it was November, and it was getting cold, and December rolls around. We had this new girl who she had come in mid-October or late October, and she and I could have been the Bobbsey twins. We were physically same kind of hair, same kind of build, petite little blondes. And I remember trying to reach out to her. I always reach out to the new teachers. Hey, what can I do for you? Probably the poltergeist.
I just heard that.
I'm telling you, this stuff goes on all the time. And I know that cat doesn't come downstairs.
Well, I heard the cat over there, I think.
No, well, the gray cat, she might be over there eating. Is she over by? No.
Oh, I thought I heard.
You heard a bell?
Yeah, I thought I did. All right.
I'm telling you, we hear all kinds of things in it. We're going to get to this house. Well, so the thing is, it's all getting on Christmas. It's around the 19th of December. I remember that night where Caroline, I had tried to reach out to Caroline, and she fell into the Dracula Renfield crowd.
Great.
I remember going to maybe 1 or 2 of their parties just with some other allies. I want to check out what they're doing, and they were doing stuff that was just deplorable. In my book, they were they're getting our students drunk and humiliating them. They were doing nasty things that I didn't like. So I'm like, you know what, Laurie, don't play. And I've seen it, and I'm out. But I remember 19th of December, Caroline said she was not going to go out for a drink with our mutual friend Scott. And believe me, I lost most of my friends because I didn't like her, and I was very vocal about it. And they don't like you when you're calling people out. You're just like marginalized to hell. All right, so 19th of December, Caroline goes home. 20th of December, the next morning, I'm there. My first hour is I'm the substitute teacher. Caroline did not show up for work. This is nothing unusual. There was a lot of drinking and partying. It was common for people not to show up that first hour of class. That's why they had subs. So I had to go in. Oh, she's not here. I knew she was tired. She looked really tired that night. I thought she just overslept, and she didn't go out drinking from what everyone told me. But I remember I'm in in her class. Maybe it was my class. I don't know. There were some of our same students. And the two, Kathy and the other one, the Dracula Renfield team, come in, and they're wearing Blues Brothers glasses. They did that a lot, even at night. It was like the Blues Brothers. And I knew that's because they're high as kites and their pupils are dilated, And they come in, they're all panicked because this girl hadn't come to work. And I'm sitting there, so what's the panic? So they grab a couple of students out of my class because they knew these guys had a car. We got it. Oh, those are the bags. Those are the bottles. That's bottles. Okay. Yeah, that's what that is. I know what that is.
Yeah.
So the point is, that morning, I finished my shift around noon. I went home. I had an appointment in the afternoon. I had a doctor's appointment because I had an injury to my hip, and I had to go get that taken care of. And I get a phone call from the gentleman I'm still in touch with, and he said something terrible's happened to Carol, the new girl.
Yep.
He said, I'm over, because his apartment was right above hers. And he said, there's something terrible, and the two women are not letting me in. And I looked in, and there's blood everywhere. Yeah. And then I called who I knew, and that girl had been murdered. She'd been stabbed 37 times in her bed. I saw the room after, and it was like Friday the 13th. I mean, it was just blood everywhere. All right, and so that was December, and then by end of December, the main perpetrator, well, we didn't have a clue. We thought it was some maniac. We had the weird Keystone Cops of Korean police. We had the criminal investigation department from the military base, because this Caroline had been seeing a military guy. Yeah. We had the FBI. We had all these people. But for some weird reason, the director of our program always made sure I was never there to be interviewed. He would send me on an errand somewhere when they would show up.
He probably knew.
Well, he didn't want me to talk about the drugs.
Right, yeah.
Because that would have shut down the school.
Yeah.
And he also didn't want me to talk about, and not that it mattered to me, but the perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, she was gay. Mm-hmm. And then the guy she tried to blame it on was an American who was gay. Koreans were deathly homophobic because they feared all gays carried AIDS. Let me tell you the culture here. They would have shut down this school, and those directors did not want me within earshot, whatever, or of them or whatever. I never got interviewed. I was off the radar. And it was interesting now when I think back of, oh, that's why he sent me way the hell over here across the city of 18 million people. So the point is, that girl's dead, and it was horrible. By January, Kathy had split and gone back to the States. The other one stayed behind. So, like in the movie Dracula, yes, master, Renfield's all alone in the asylum. I think I'll eat some flies. That's how this girl was.
Jeez.
And I'll never forget this conversation. This is you want weird?
Right, yeah.
This is weird. So we're all feeling, wow, we're so sorry. That's your human compassion, and we're so sorry. And even the one I didn't like either of them. But, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to give him a hug, and this is so horrible, and we feel your pain. But yet I always felt there was something wrong. Right, I still felt that, but I could not bring myself to imagine they did it. And then one day, the Renfield girl who was left behind, I went up to her and say, "How you doing? How's it going? How you coping?" And she starts reciting, well, the gash mark on her left thigh was 17 centimeters long and 3 millimeters deep. And the cut on her whatever.
Right.
Whatever. She has given me every dimension of the wounds on that body. And then she says, and I might have cut her head off. What lesson plan are you doing today? This is no lie.
Yeah.
This is exactly how it played out, and I'm going, what did I just hear?
Yeah.
What did I just hear?
That's so weird.
So that girl and the criminal investigation department guy, the American, he figured it was these two women, but Korean cops had messed up the evidence trail. It was awful.
Wow.
But they did arrest her, and I was there at the apartment because of her housemate. Or did I get the call? No, I went there one day before, I think the day before, because her roommate was nervous, needless to say. And I would go over to the apartment and make sure everything, are there any knives? Like, you got all the knives out of this place, it was that kind of tension.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get the call from her roommate. They just arrested her. And I said, okay, we need to go out and let's go get drunk and eat Taiwan. We just got to get drunk right now.
Yeah.
And they did arrest the accomplice who said what she said happened.
What the hell was that?
That could be next door.
Oh, yeah,
The
God.
neighbor. Oh, you heard all these noises. So what she said, she confessed cracked, like Renfield cracked.
Yeah.
And she said, well, that Kathy had gone over there in the middle of the night. Caroline knew her, so let her in the door, but probably just was tired and went to bed. She was very tired, went to bed. So Kathy waited till she was asleep and pounced on her with a kitchen knife.
Right.
That takes a lot of force to put a kitchen knife through somebody's rib cage 17 times. Then she went back at 2 or 3 in the morning, got the other one, the Renfield, and Renfield went back to do some postmortem mutilation of the body. They cut away her genitalia, and Kathy was mad because this girl was not in love with her, kind of thing. But then Kathy, we found out through the Interpol investigator, was wanted for a similar crime in Thailand, and maybe another one in Nepal.
Huh.
So she had been doing work with Peace Corps and probably was murdering, again, American women, not local women.
Yeah.
And
that's what the other
blondes.
victims were?
She had a thing about blondes. And then so that's not creepy enough. The guy she tried to frame for it, and she tried to frame this guy, Scott.
Yeah.
He called me in. This was a few months later. This was October. It was in October the next year. And actually, there'd been a lot of stuff going on with him. But he sat down with me one day in, I think, late September, early October. And he sits there, Laurie, I'm going to tell you, because he said, I went with Kathy before she went back to the States. We were in the Philippines together, because he was also Peace Corps. He had lived in the Philippines. So they went to the Philippines together, and he said, Laurie, she did it. She pretty much confessed to me she did it. And he said, you were, even though Scott was so mad, he hated my guts for not liking her. And he thought I was like a homophobe. And I'm like, you guys don't get it.
Right.
But he told me, you were so right about her way back then. And he said, you're lucky because she was aiming for you. You were her intended target. But you picked up on it and you resisted her, and that probably saved your life. And I'm sitting there like, what? Then the next thing I know, he's giving me, I think I still have one of his cameras. He's giving me his 2 very expensive, he had a Yashica and a Canon camera. You can have these. Well, what does that mean? If someone's giving you, they're very precious.
Was he gonna off himself?
He did. So the next night, I was supposed to meet him for dinner. I get home from my teaching, and his flatmate called me and said, yeah, he's sitting dead in the chair. He taken pills and gas, and he was a funny color orange. He was like 6'4", and he vandalized the apartment. He wrote graffiti. Really? He wrote, die mother, cockroaches. He was, you can bleep, bleep, bleep.
Yeah,
but he had graffitied the apartment. With all mother cockroaches die, and who knows what that meant. And the Korean police were keeping us up all night. What is political meaning of this? While he's stiffening in the chair, and then they made his roommate carry him down. They wouldn't touch him because they found out he was gay, and all gays have AIDS. What a nightmare.
Wow.
And then I had to deal with his death and give his eulogy and deal with the family. I'm the one who had to do all that. And that was really tragic. He was 27. I mean, the girl who died was 26.
Wow.
They're in the prime of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
And actually 48 hours. Now, this has happened in 1988 and 89. And it was just last January when 48 Hours did a special on it. you can find it.
Really?
But I caught it by accident, and I'm like, holy boy, that was the one time I opened up a Twitter account. I'm on there, man.
Yeah.
And I did talk to the producer of the show.
Can you find? Can you find that?
Yeah, I can find that link. That. Yeah, I'll find it. I've got it somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was pretty accurate. And what I love, Peter Van Sant, he marched into the office. So the Dracula person.
Yeah.
She's been working and living in the Puget Sound area. I think she's working through one of the universities out there in Washington State. She's a guidance counselor.
Really?
She's had a nice, cushy little career all these years. And Peter Van Sant marches into her office unannounced, and she's quaking. And I'm like, good. And I know, and people on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, people on Twitter were going nuts and telling me to shut up, and but we love her, I'm like, yeah, she's a psychopath, and she's a freaking psychopath. I'm sorry.
That you were there?
I made it known that I was there, and then that's when the producer of the show contacted me. Can we talk? I said, yeah, let's talk. And I put him in touch with two other people who were there that I'm still in touch with.
Were you on the show?
No, they didn't do it. He was hoping to do a follow-up show, and he said it will depend on what my bosses say. I don't think they will. They might. I don't know. He said the reason no justice was served is because of an obscure... Korea and America had no extradition treaty.
Right. Yeah.
Even though the Koreans had put out a warrant for her arrest, you couldn't bring her back for justice. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until 1994... when Strom Thurmond, of all senators, passed this law to bring Americans back to country where they had committed crimes against other Americans. There was no law to protect you. And again, this was not a Korean thing doing it. The Koreans are mystified. Why would we do that? We don't do that, and they really don't. But yeah, here it was where my spidey senses were tingling. Like, this woman is bad news. But I could never imagine how bad.
Yeah.
And this was bad. And I have no idea what's going to happen to her, if they're going to fire her or protect her. If they protect her, fie on them.
Yeah.
But I love to see her caught with her pants down in a way. And they interviewed the FBI guy who was in charge of that investigation. And he said, funny how she's blaming everything on the other person when that was never the case 30 years ago.
Right, yeah.
She never once accused she blamed the male who had committed suicide, blamed it on him. And now all of a sudden, no, it's the Renfield.
Right. Yeah.
It was just, who expects that?
Yeah.
I lived in Africa. I mean, I saw war. I saw wars. I saw stuff that isn't pleasant, and maybe that's psychopathic enough where humans are doing terrible things to humans. But there was sort of a reason for that.
Yeah.
Poverty and political control. But this is American crap. What the heck? I'm in this other country, and I didn't leave. A lot of people, like two people who were very tight with the Dracula Renfield.
Yeah.
I remember one of them freaking out. How can you stand it here? Yeah, it's my neighbors.
Okay.
Just saw something weird though. I don't know. I just saw something move right there. I did.
What was it?
It was just like a shot, like an arm shot out from the bathroom or something. It was weird. I don't know. I just saw it.
Maybe it was the vibration of the wall.
No, it looked like a limb protruding out.
Oh, wow.
But who knows? Like, no, this is just water. There's nothing else. I would like it to be something else, but
we could take like a 5-minute break if you want.
Well, I'm just saying. So to wrap it up, I saw people bailing from that place. Yeah. I didn't. I stayed. I stayed over there for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So, and eventually, right after about 2 years, I stayed 2 years with that school. They promoted me. I did such wonderful things through the whole crisis. And then I went and got a job as a professor at a university, which was better, and I was there for 8 more years doing that. And we had another weird little incident between Americans and a Korean girl who jumped out of a 7th floor building, but she didn't die. And oh my God,
Why was that? Why did that happen?
Well, she was in love with one of the teachers. This is a whole different city, and this is years like around Halloween. What is it about that? And she was in love with one of the teachers, and of course, two of our teachers were, they should have gone down for statutory rape on this one.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they were not behaving, they were not being good boys.
Yeah.
One was British, one was American. The American was actually engaged to another Korean woman, but was involved with the 17-year-old girl.
Oh.
She was at their apartment in the wee hours of the morning trying to get to the one who was engaged. He locked her out of the room while the British guy took advantage of that situation, but they were very drunk. There was a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
And she went to the balcony of their 7th floor apartment and she jumped. And she landed on the hood of a car, which shattered her spine, but didn't kill her. And then again, I'm sitting there, oh my God, what is wrong with these Americans again? And I go to the hospital to visit her. And she's in the bed. Now, they figure she's not totally paralyzed. She's going to always walk with a limp or something. She's not going to walk right. But she had a lot of damage. There were several surgeries they were planning on. But when she sat in that hospital bed telling me, I'm going to tell the police he pushed me, when I know that wasn't the case, then I'm like, oh my God, this is bad.
Jeez.
And it took the fiance of the American, her family was connected to the police department. I don't know, friends with took a lot of payola. Oh, yeah. They paid them off big time. But here I am again getting grilled by I didn't get grilled with the murder, but I got grilled by Korean police on this one. And it was weird because my Korean and their English, this was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kept my cool. I did tell the two guys get to the embassy because this is a minor. In Korean prisons, you do not want to be there, and I don't like you guys for what you did. But because she said she was going to accuse one of you or both of you for throwing her off, which I know damn well because there was a witness. Yeah. I know it's not true. This girl is another little psycho, and sadly, and eventually the police just kind of gave her a lecture, and it was sad. Yeah. But it's like, oh my God, why are these Americans, what are you doing over here? This is like Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad. You're sailing up the Congo. It's looking for Colonel Kurtz and Apocalypse Now. It's like, please don't. I couldn't understand it. But yeah, living overseas, that is just one of the rare things. But go ahead, take a break.
Oh yeah.
On that note,
I'll say cut.
I'll
just keep it going.
All right, keep her going. Maybe it'll pick up more EVPs.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, they interviewed her and they interviewed the other one, Tamara. And Tamara, I'm still in touch with Tamara. Mm-hmm. Nancy, she was the one the Bond girl who was the real beautiful,
right? Yeah.
Tall, exquisite, athletic woman, and she sort of, once I wasn't useful to her, she just disconnected with me. But yeah, they were interviewed. And they brought her back to Seoul. They brought her back. Yeah. I'm like, well, it couldn't have been me. But I have to admit, she and Tamara they were involved with that black hole society. They were partying in there, till everything was blurred. I mean, I don't really know how much they remember, to be honest. But they were both really traumatized when the reveal of this happened. It hit them because that's a betrayal. Yeah. They trusted. Kathy was their dear friend, and they trusted these women, and but yeah, it just to me was, I had kept myself in out here, like I say, on the cusp of the event horizon, looking at the black hole, sucking everything in and destroying it. I just kind of hovered out here because I had to. I mean, I knew it was right. Yeah. It's what's probably saved me. And when Scott told me that, I'm like, what? Real? And I do know how Kathy tried to get in. I had an injury to my hip and my lower back, and trying not to get hit by a car. Right. Yeah. In Seoul, they drove on the sidewalks, so I was jumping out of the way and I twisted my hip and my back really badly. So there were a couple weeks where I was just laid up, and she came to visit me. And again, I'm all alone,
Right?
And I'm pretty immobile. And she came over and was all sweetness and nice, and I brought you some apples. And get the fuck out. I mean, that was scary. I didn't like it. Bet. I had nobody. I mean, I'm alone with her. She tried to corner me, get me alone more than once, and I'm like, demons of hell, I'm summoning you now. But you've got to listen to your instincts, your intuition.
Right. Yeah.
When people don't, that's when they get in trouble.
I mean, you caught it on the bus.
When
she stared at you.
Yeah. She had a look. I don't even know, but it was like her eyes, like they say, her eyes went black.
Yeah.
And you just don't think that happens, but it happened. And I'm like, that's not right. Not kosher. Yeah. There's something wrong for nothing. And there was a lot of incongruity with it. I mean, girl, you were Peace Corps. I was with another agency in Africa. I mean, it's rough. Mm. You're in all kinds of situations that are not comfortable.
Right, yeah.
Oh my God. Soldiers pointing guns at you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're crowded and cramped and people grabbing and touching, and you deal with it. You don't freak out. You freak out, you're done. And I'm sitting there for someone who had this veteran of how many stints with Peace Corps. There was something wrong with this picture. And that look in her eyes, and her face had lost all its color. It went pale, real pale. She was already pale. This was worse. It was creepy. And I couldn't call it paranormal, but
it's still like
yeah, I mean, it was flesh and blood, but still there's something, what's evil? I mean, that gets you into all kinds of questions, like what is evil? I mean, can people be possessed? I can't say that was a possession.
Right. Yeah.
But there was something very wrong, and I'm just going to say evil that I picked up on, and stay away. Stay. I mean, you can deal with mess. I work in 2 prisons. I deal with murderers on every week. I don't get that from them. I have 1, maybe 2 that I would say are sociopaths.
Right. Yeah.
But to be honest, they know something's wrong with them, and because they never learned how to be empathetic and compassionate as children, they were never raised with that. They can't help what they are, just like a lion or a predator can't help. And yes, they're all in there for murder, for doing 1 murder, usually against a loved one or a family member. Not like they were serial killers. Right, yeah. And they're paying for it for the rest of for at least 30 some years. But I don't get that vibe from them even. Huh. This was something else. Right. I don't even know how to describe it.
Wow.
All right, we can move on to another topic. This is bizarre.
Yeah. Definitely bizarre.
Let's be bizarre. Life is bizarre enough. Yeah, you had a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah, I mean, they were just kind of the general thing.
So, there I am in Korea, and I was basically an English teacher, but I did practice some anthropology and did some research in anthropological field as well. And for the most part, I had a very interesting time there, and then I came back to the States, and I asked myself, why? Why did you do that? What about conducting research, you said here?
I was going to say, you had a couple interesting things, or at least bizarre things that have happened to you when you were younger. Right?
Oh, yes, yeah. So one thing, like I said, I was mentioning before how when I came back to the States, and that's 20 years ago. Yeah. Wow, I've been here that long. Yeah, no. So all I can say is, so one of my fields, so let's go into cultural anthropology. Yeah. So we look at modern day, you can look at ancient societies too, but I'm an applied anthropologist. So I look at real-time problems and what are the cultural reasons for people doing what they do. And I've been hired to work, for example, consulting for pharmaceutical companies, as evil as they are, but there are some that they produce a lot of anti-malarial medicine, and when I lived in Cameroon, it would be a problem for people to take oral medicine. They had a terrible fear about that, and they wouldn't take medicines orally. They'd rather have an injection, which is far riskier than swallowing a pill.
What was the fear behind that?
Because they have a history of poisonings, and when white people were colonizing over there, they would often give African people, sub-Saharan African people, medications that were poisons just to see the effects on them. There were some cruel, nasty things that happened during the days of European dominance. And then there also is a habit among them, in their own families, is to poison each other. One wife gets jealous of another wife. It's a polygamy, and I saw this happen. So I kind of did this report for the National Pharmaceutical Company of Argentina, of all things, because a lot of their medicines were going to waste. And how do we get to the bottom of why they're not taking pills? I said, well, they have a deep-seated fear about oral stuff.
I mean, rightfully so.
Rightfully so. There's a lot of history here. So that's the kind of these are some of the projects. I did a lot of research with education, language, policies. When you're, again, in Cameroon, where we had French and English as official language, but you had hundreds of other languages, indigenous languages, and attitudes about education. I do all this kind of work, and I get paid for it. I worked with the hospitality industry with why hotel operations were at a standstill or weren't efficient, and I get hired to come in and analyze the culture of everybody in that hotel, and from the housekeeping staff all the way up to upper management. And usually it was that housekeeping staff weren't very fluent in English, and the communications would break down easily. And then the upper management had a very condescending attitude toward the lower staff, and it was just culture again, where you're from. And so lots of stuff. I've worked with media. I've been a consultant on a lot of different things as an anthropologist. But one of my main points of interest has been paranormal. And because when I was young, as the age of 7, I had my first experience, which I cannot explain. And it happened when I lived in Germany, in Heidelberg, and I was bringing my bicycle in from a ride, and I had to bring my bike down the steps to the basement where we had a storage room. This was a big apartment building. You have to understand, this is in the 60s, so German buildings in their basements, they were air raid shelters.
Right.
All the doors are very heavy steel, reinforced doors, and it's solid stuff. But I'll never forget when my front tire just hit the floor as I got my bike down the stairs all by myself at the age of 7. I saw one of the storeroom doors just open by itself.
One of the heavy air raid doors.
And it opened and it closed. And I sat there like,
that just doesn't happen.
What the hell is that? So I kind of toss the bike on the ground, and I run up the stairs back to the daylight, and I find my friends out playing. Gotta come down here. I got 5, 6 kids down there. Shh, everybody stop. Wait, watch that door. Sure enough, it did it again.
Really?
It did it again. I didn't think it would, but it did. And I'll never forget that door opening, and then bang. All the kids are going nuts. What's in there? There's somebody in there. Because we were guessing.
Yeah, right.
There's got to be somebody in that room. So who's the dumbhead who gets, I'm like in every horror movie you ever see, the stupid white girl. I got to go take a look at this. Or it could be a white boy. I mean, the white person's got to go take a look. Anybody else would be running away. I literally said, okay. So I went over, first of all, and it was one of those latches you pull, I don't know. Not a knob. It wasn't a doorknob. It was like a handle you pull down. And for me, it was a lot, to pull that handle down. It was very heavy. And the door was not locked. So that was the first thing. And I got it open, and I looked into this room. Now, there was a window in that room. It was kind of off to the right. And there was daylight coming in. So the room was bright. It wasn't dark. And then there was another room. There was a little closet within this storage room. And I'm in this room alone. None of those kids would go in.
Right, yeah.
They're all standing around the door. And I'm like, okay, next thing I got to check. I got to open that closet.
Right.
And who's in there? You don't know. I'm more worried if there's a creep in there.
Right.
I opened it up. It was not locked. Nothing. There was absolutely nobody in that room. The window was not open. It wasn't a window. It was like those slat kind of windows. You couldn't really fit through in there. It was closed. Wind. There's no air movement in this room. And I think there was a kind of a grill on that window so people couldn't just get in.
Right.
There was absolutely nobody in that room. And again, it was light. It wasn't dark. It wasn't creepy. And I'm like, I got no explanation. And I never saw that happen again. But I remember when I got my bike put away and everything, the kids were like, blah, blah, blah. I went up to my mom, Mom. And she says, oh, you must have seen a ghost. And I did not know what a ghost was. I did not, that was not part of my vocabulary. Right. And then my mom just laughed it off. It's just your imagination. Never had another incident in that building. And it was a German apartment building too. I mean, we lived with the German community.
Why were you in Germany?
My dad was stationed there in the military, so we were all over the place. When I was a kid, I was everywhere. You know, Dad would get stationed, we'd go. And so I was all across the United States and in Europe. And by the time I was 15, you know, I think I was 15 when we moved back to Minnesota, where my parents are from. But so I never had another experience. I mean, that was in, here it dates me, 1966, I think. And then we moved around a lot, and I lived out in Dugway, Utah, which is like Area 51. I think that's the real Area 51, by the way.
Was that the one with the bell? Or
no, the bell happened in Lakehurst, New Jersey.
Okay.
But there were weird things. This was a proving ground, and you need to go to Dugway. Forget Area 51, people. Go see the Men in Black in Dugway, because they're there. It's in the Great Salt Desert in Utah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people in Utah don't even know it exists. But yeah, you try driving up in that part, you got the black vehicle.
Oh, really?
Men in Black do exist. The black helicopters, stealth helicopters, yeah, they do exist, people. I saw that also in the... I lived like in the X-Files.
Yeah.
I mean, when the X-Files came out, I'm like, oh, Chris Carter, I could argue. No one believes me.
Right.
So when we finally moved back to New Jersey, my accent, I think I was finishing 5th grade, and we moved to Lakehurst when I was maybe around 12. So 6th grade, I was in Lakehurst. And we lived at a place, in fact, Kathy and I looked it up on Google Maps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the house is still there. We moved into a house, a 3-bedroom bungalow at 500 Rose Street in Lakehurst, New Jersey, because my dad had a contract job with the Navy base. Right. Even though he was an Army pilot, he was a pilot, and he left the military. He was no longer military. He had left, and so he was a contractor. So he was working with the Navy. So we're in this house, and I have to admit, I'm 12. And maybe it was my mother who got me into this, but the Ouija board. There it is. We got the classic Ouija board story. All the Ouija board did for me was predict I would marry an African. I'm 12. It did. It did. My mother laughed and said, that means you're going to marry a black man. And then 16 years later, I did.
Wow.
Not counting on it, but and then she wasn't laughing anymore. She didn't like it. I'm like, what's wrong with you? But I don't remember anything creepy with the Ouija board. But I was also I remember in the library, who did I like to read? Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved the Salem witch trials, and I was like typical girl who likes all that stuff. And I wanted to do a seance. Now the funny thing is, that's a weird noise out there.
I think it was just a helicopter.
They're spying on us. Men in Black!
There it is, yeah.
Except you don't hear those helicopters.
Right,
They're quiet. So I remember it was in July, and it was not in that house. My dad's co-worker friends, they invited us over for a barbecue, and they lived on the water, and it was nice. And they had a daughter who I think was more my sister's age, and my sister's 3 years younger than me, and so we were over there playing with her and her friends. And I decided, hey, let's do a seance. You see something?
No, it was just a cat.
Oh. Okay.
It was like peeking up around the corner. I was like, okay.
Okay, we know we have cat. We know we have other stuff in here too.
Yeah.
But so I remember my whole thing with doing a seance, I didn't believe in any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to scare the crap out of people. I love telling ghost stories and watching Creature Feature all night. And
me too.
so same thing. So, did all that. And so we went up in their house. This was not this house. This was a friend's house, right? We go up to the second floor. There was a den, like an office, dad's office. Had live books in it and stuff. And we got on, and it was dark. We could close the shade, and it was dark in there. And I had the door open just a crack to have a little light come in. And I don't recall. I don't think we had a Ouija board. I don't know what we did, but I'm summoning one of the witches from Salem. And we're in Jersey, but I'm saying I'm summoning. I forget who it was, and the girls are hold hands and then of course I say, door. There's a figure there. You see it? Oh my God! And boom, they all went nuts and tore. To me it was a trick of shadow with the door. They ran out of that room screaming, and I sat in that dark room and I laughed my ass off until I actually saw something that looked like a female figure standing by the door, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Okay. No. Okay, I'm leaving now. And I kind of got up, and I remember coming around and to the landing, and so it's like a landing of stairs where you come across this way, and then you got to go down. And right here at the landing was a window, and it was a summer day, and that window was open. It wasn't windy. There was a little bit of a breeze, and as I passed that window, bang, that thing slammed down. Oh, Jesus.
Right, yeah.
But then the trouble began in our house. And it's...
And where was this?
This is in Lakehurst.
Okay.
So we did the seance, and I'm pretty sure I probably did seances in the other house too. Yeah. But we did the seance in that house, which was in another town. I get home, same time of year. I mean, it wasn't long after that incident. Now... I used to share there were 3 bedrooms in this house. And so one room was like where I had a lot of my terrariums. I had a lot of reptiles and stuff. I shared the other room with my sister. We had bunk beds. I was on top bunk, she was lower bunk. And I had kind of a bookshelf desk thing. And I had on this bookshelf either my dinosaurs that I collected and fossils I got from out west. And I had a collection of dolls. Now, I was not a doll person, but these were dolls from all the countries we had visited or lived. Cool. And they all had the traditional clothes. Yeah. One of these dolls was from Japan. And so she had like that little girl.
Oh, yeah.
She had the white face, the little kabuki face, and the hair all puffed up on her head, and she had the red kimono, and she had that painted face with the almond eyes. Her eyes would look off to the side, and her lips were just little pursed, persimmon lips, and that doll would, it's a fixed doll. You can't bend it, you can't turn it, you can't. It's there's no articulation. She had her little hourglass drum, and she was always at the top of the bookshelf because she was too tall to sit on the lower shelves. Yeah. And it was an afternoon also in July, and my sister was there. She was outside playing. I was on my bunk bed because I was watching something on TV. Who knows? It was some afternoon. Maybe it was Journey to the Unknown. I think I went in to watch it. Yeah. And I'm on my top bunk. It's daytime. This is the other thing about paranormal. Everybody thinks this happens at night. At night, yeah. Daytime,
it's the same thing with like Bigfoot too, or
they always think
UFOs. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they happen anytime. And so it's daytime. I hear the kids playing out in the yard. I don't know, my mom was in the kitchen. I don't know. I was watching the TV. I'm on the top bunk, so I'm kind of looking down at an angle. And something drew my attention to that doll. Just suddenly, I remember turning my head, and that little doll with its beautiful little painted kabuki face tipped its head and grinned at me.
Ugh.
I mean, it did. Its head went off to the side, like a little bit of a nod to the side, and it grinned, and it had teeth. I mean, it grinned with teeth. I tell you, that gives me chills to this day.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sleeping. I'm wide awake. I know what I was watching. I know what every moment, what happened when I got drawn to just why would it attract my attention? That effing doll.
Jeez.
And I froze. And I'm like, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I gotta move. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go. And I'm on the top bunk. Right. I just rolled off and crash bang to the floor. Yeah. My mom heard it. What the heck's going on? What happened? Mom, that doll just smiled at me. That doll grinned at me. Oh my God, I can't be in this room. I can't. So I got to sleep. I think my dad slept on the sofa, and I slept with my mom in their bed. Mm-hmm. My sister got to sleep in that room. And then I wake up, my mom had put the doll at the nightstand. She put it there just to teach me something. Right, I don't know. Yeah. I wake up and that thing's looking at me. Yeah. Ah! All right. And from then on, that house exploded with all kinds of crazy poltergeist activity. And again, granted, I was the only one who saw the doll do that time. Mm-hmm. But I do recall some of my playmates that would come over. I can remember their names to this day. Yeah. They'd come over to play, and they'd go we'd be out in the living room or something, and they'd go into the bedroom. And I remember Walter, he's another kid, 12 years old, a boy, and he's like, that doll freaking moved. He saw it move, and I'm like, what are you talking about? That Asian doll, that doll.
Specifically that one.
Yeah, that one, not any of the others, because I said, what are you talking about? And again, this is stuff, you had to be careful talking about it, because when you did back then, you were marked, you were labeled, you were made fun of, you were ridiculed. My own parents just ridiculed me for this, like something's wrong with that girl. School, are you kidding me? They'd start, you're a witchy poo, and it was humiliating. So you learn, I ain't talking about it. You just shut up.
Oh yeah.
And then there was a time when Barbara Cummings came over one afternoon. Again, it was a nice kind of summer day. Yeah. And I had left sharing that room with my sister, because my sister was a pig and I couldn't stand it anymore. So I got the terrarium room. I didn't care. They were my pets anyway. I hunkered down in there with all the snakes and the lizards and turtles and fish, and I had a pet raccoon, and I had cool stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I had cool stuff. And the dog and the cats, they were all in there with me. But I kept the room very neat and clean. But I remember Barbara. So that room was interesting because we had wooden floors. There were wood floors, and there were two doors. One door went out to the kitchen, and the other door went to the hallway that would take you to the bathroom on the left and to the living room on the right. And there was a big grandfather clock we had from Germany that was standing there. And one day, Barbara Cummings and I were sitting on the floor of my bedroom, and we're playing Monopoly. Yeah. There was nobody in the house. My sister was off somewhere. My mom was shopping. My dad was, who knows where he was. There was nobody in the house. And suddenly, the door on my right, my bedroom door, just kind of creaked. And they weren't closed. It started to creak, bang, close. And then the weird thing was, it opened. And then the door behind Barbara on the other side did the same thing. And within a couple of minutes, it was bang, 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 bang. And then all the other doors in the house were doing this. Yeah. She and I ran out of that freaking house. Of course, I have to go back in it because I live there. Now, she would never come in again. I remember seeing a big cast iron frying pan take off the stove and fly. I'm not talking sliding.
Right, yeah.
Fly across the kitchen and land with a big clatter. one morning, real early, you know how it is, you gotta go to the bathroom. So it's probably pre-dawn. I remember the light was just starting. It was still dark. As I'm getting up to go to the bathroom, I'm hearing newspapers turning. I thought my mom, she was an early riser.
Yeah.
I thought she went and got the morning paper. She's sitting in the living room and she's reading the paper. I thought I'd see her.
Yeah.
So I took a look in the living room. It was dark. There wasn't a light on. I watched that paper flying around the room like it had wings. Literally,
Right. Yeah.
this thing was flying in different segments. It was
Wow.
flying, fluttering, and I'm like, forget the freaking bathroom. I jumped into my bed, and then everything went quiet. I couldn't go back to sleep, and I heard footsteps coming to the door, and I'm like, what the hell? And I'm praying my ass off. Please, whatever, God, Jesus, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I waited till the sun, because it was near sunrise. Yep. When the sun got up, I thought, okay, I'm going to see all these newspapers all over the living room.
No.
Folded, nice and neat, on the arm of the sofa. And then I got into the incidents that I told Carrick about, where we had what we thought was a Jersey Devil attacking all our houses one night. And then the night the alarm went off and everybody's walking down the street like there's zombies. You can talk about
those if you want, yeah.
So there was an incident that happened probably, it was school, it was the beginning of school year. Probably this was 1968. We all heard stories of Jersey Devil. You live in Jersey and we're in South Jersey, which is not far from the Pine Barrens. We all would hear these stories and there were many accounts. But one night, it was time, it was school night, so go to bed, and I suppose it was 9-ish. It was dark already, 9 or 10 o'clock, and I'm in bed. I got the raccoon with me. The raccoon's giving me a nice head massage. Love him. But I hear this scraping, like this really sharp, prolonged scrape from outside. I mean, I looked at the wall. I thought, is the raccoon scratching the wall? Actually, the raccoon was curled up and asleep.
Right.
He had finished his little massage. He was sitting at the head of my bed and nothing. The dog is looking around. All the animals are like perked up there.
Right.
And I got out of bed, and my mom and dad, everybody, we went out into the yard, and everybody in the neighborhood was out. Lights came on, the whole thing, and all the neighbors said they heard the same thing at the same time. And we all saw scratch marks on the side of our houses. These big, long scrapes. Now, you're thinking, could have been kids with sticks, but how are they going to hit, I don't know how many houses on a whole block at the same time? How many kids is that going to take?
Yeah.
It wasn't just my house or the Cummings house or the Bates' house. Everybody was on the street in a commotion.
Even if it is like one creature, like a Jersey Devil or something, like it did it all at the same time.
Same time. So
whatever it is, it's weird.
It was weird, and I don't know. Everyone said Jersey Devil because you blame everything weird on Jersey Devil. It's not what I've heard about what the Jersey Devil does. It leaves weird footprints and it walks on your roof.
Flies around,
I hear it will attack fishermen. I've heard those stories. This was just allotted to that, but it hit all these houses, and there was physical evidence of it. And then
pictures of it anywhere?
No, of course not.
No. Right, yeah.
I'm a kid. I don't even have a camera. I don't have anything. I don't have nothing. No luxuries like that. But it got everybody, even the big people, the adults, alarmed. And then one night, also it was a summer night, and I was up doing a creature feature. I think it was the Gila monster. Gila. Yeah, I think that was the movie. And that was all done, the double feature, and it was like 2 a.m. now. My mom was up. My dad was out. He might have been on, who knows where he was. My sister was already asleep in bed, and my mom came out to get me to bed, and because I'm on the sofa in the living room, and we hear this bell going off, and it's not like today with those electronic sirens. It was like an old style metal bell with a hammer going. You can look them up on
like a school bell,
like an old-fashioned school bell. You can look those up online. They still have them. They sound. But it was like a bell, and it was coming from downtown, and we were probably a good 4 or 5 blocks from the center of Lakehurst. Lakehurst then consisted of 6 bars and a grocery store, maybe a church. and a school, a couple of schools. You know, I went to middle school there. So, so we heard the bell going off. So we both go out the front door and stand on the stoop. There's a 3-step stoop. And we see again people from our neighborhood, you know, from up and down the street. They're just walking in this measured, slow pace, not running.
Right.
It was just this calm, mesmerized sort of march toward the bell in the street light. You know, it's dark.
Yeah.
My mom is calling out, "Hey, Mr. You know, blah," or "Hey,
people,
Susie."
People you know.
Not an answer. Not the head didn't even turn, and she and I are standing there going, "What the heck?"
Mm-hmm.
And then we watched this. I don't know how many minutes, and then the bell stopped, and they all turned around and just walked back like they were hypnotized. Yeah. Dozens of people.
Yeah, you didn't even hear about that like anywhere else. That's so.
And Lakehurst is a funky place.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably was funkier back then. That's where the Hindenburg crashed.
Right. Yeah.
It's considered a very haunted place.
Did you say it was like near a military base?
Yeah, there's a naval base there,
right.
And that's where the famous Hindenburg blimp crashed and burned. And there's been, you know, there's tragedy there, and there's a huge Navy base there, and who the heck knows? This is in the 60s. And then, again, other weird things would go on in this house. This house was terrifying to me. Terrifying. And then in 1970, my dad, just in the middle of the night, get in the car, we're leaving. No explanation, no nothing. We left everything behind, including that doll. Everything.
Wow.
All my childhood stuff left behind. We got in the car with the 2 dogs. I think my other animals were left behind. I had all kinds of pets. I had rabbits. Raccoon was gone by then. But I think I had a tortoise. I had a redfoot tortoise. We just, you know, get in the car and go. Now, I don't know if it was because there was that house drove him out. He would never talk about it. He would never admit.
Said why.
But my dad, I think, also was in trouble with the mob.
Yeah. Oh, really?
He did some shady. He and his buddy did some shady things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He never explained.
Hey, I grew up with the Sopranos. I did.
Right.
A lot of my girlfriends were little mafia princesses, believe me, and I was at their house a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they were always very good to me. But it's like they were kind of like, "Hey, we got your daughter." My dad had some dealings with the mob.
Right.
It probably was that, but that house was the beginning of the end of our family, because my dad deteriorated mentally very badly after that, and we drove all day and all night to Minnesota. That's where he's from. Both my parents are from. Wound up at his mother's place, and it was awful. And then when I moved when the divorce happened and it was ugly, nasty business, I wound up living with my paternal grandmother, because it was very traumatic, and that house was haunted. And I have friends to this day who remember, you know, we were all like, again, 8th grade, 9th grade. My girlfriends, two of my oldest friends I've known because they lived near my grandmother. We're still friends after half a century. They tell their grandkids about the stuff that went on in that house. So I don't know if it was me. Am I a magnet to this stuff? But all I know is strange things would happen I have no logical explanation for. I was raised actually in a very scientific household.
Right.
You didn't lend yourself to strange, wild imaginings. And that's what I'd be accused of all the time. Overactive imagination. But when I have witnesses to this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a mental health case anymore, and it's not just imagination. When I had a slumber party at my grandma's house, and there were 3 of us in my bed, and there was one girl who had to sleep on the floor because we didn't have room. And she's at 2 a.m, let me in the bed, ah! And apparently, and of course we didn't see it, but she claimed my alarm clock was one of those glow in the dark alarm clocks, was floating in front of her face. Something pulled her hair. She woke up and this was floating in front of her face, and there was this man There were no men in the house. There were no men at all. Was standing over her, looking at her, and scared her to death. I mean, she was. And another time, the same person, we were in my room playing cards. I think we were playing Go Fish. And we heard a man's voice, very deep, kind of maniacal, coming up. And I know what pipes sound like. I know it wasn't like pipes shuddering. It was a man's voice. I can't say it was a laugh. It was kind of a moan.
Yeah.
Although I did hear her laugh at one other time, and it was scary as hell.
Wow.
But I mean, there was vocalizations. We saw with the naked eye. We saw orbs moving through the house, and we'd see the cat chasing them.
Yeah.
Television would go on and off by itself. I'd hear footsteps in the attic, and there were no floorboards in the attic. No one can walk up there. And my grandma was like, "Oh, it's mice, raccoons," and my grandma would again, no, there's nothing here. But my friend Erin, my friend Judy, my friend Karen, who we're all in touch to this day. They all remember the stuff that went on in that house. And then when we left that house and moved in 2 houses down to my great aunt's house, there wasn't anything that went on in there. I mean, it's not every place I've lived.
Yeah.
There were 2 houses down, there was nothing. So what is it? I don't know. I mean, I've lived by that time I had lived in 3, let's say, haunted places.
Yeah.
And then after that, I didn't live in any for many decades, actually. I think until I lived in my the last place I lived in South Korea, there was something strange in that apartment. But I found out that a shaman had lived in that apartment a year before me.
Interesting.
And all the shamans, I was in a neighborhood full of shamans, I didn't know it, but they all told me what I needed to do, and I didn't make a big deal out of it. But there was something in there, and I had witnesses. Yeah. I'm not just imagining that glass moving across the bar.
Yeah.
Or the light switch being physically seeing the light switch turn on or off with 3 other people in there. So my Korean friend helped me do the research, and we found out a shaman had been in there. I think I've lived in maybe 4 or 5, and I've lived a lot of places.
Yes.
Where I lived in Cameroon, there was nothing. Where I lived in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, there was nothing. I came to Maine, and the first house I visited was a friend's house. That was the first time between her house and my friend's house in Lynn, and it was the first time not the first time I'd been in New England, but I was thinking of moving here in 2004. I came to visit some people. I visited some friends in Munjoy Hill, south. And then I went to visit my friend in Lynn, and boom, boom, back to back, I had for the first time in 2 decades paranormal encounters where I saw an apparition in my friend's bathroom, and I went downstairs very calmly and said, "You got something going on in this house?" And the big people were like, "No, what are you talking about?" Their 14-year-old son said, "Oh yeah. It's a male, and the cemetery is right across the street. And guess what? You get to sleep in my room where he likes to come in." I said, "Thank you very much." And so I remember that night making a deal. Listen, I don't care if you're here. I mean, I'm tired of this crap. Yeah. I don't want no floating heads. And you come up here and you can stay in your corner. I stay in mine. We got a deal here. But I did see that figure. Yeah. And then when I went to Lynn, we were in her backyard. Her husband had taken off. I see the curtain draw back and a little face coming out. I said, "Who's in your house?" She says, "Oh, that. Well, the house is haunted." "Oh, thank you."
Yeah.
Because it was not something I really wanted to return to.
Right, yeah.
But New England, I've had more encounters. And this house I'm in now, I've had lots of stuff. So
I was just going to say, it keeps finding its way back to you.
Well, maybe, I'm open to it.
Right, yeah.
But to me, Nate, it's no different than trying to, like with Bigfoot or Yeti or, I think it's in human history and in every human culture I've lived in. I don't care if they believe in God or not. And there are cultures that don't really believe in a God. you exist and there you are. Right, but guess what? They all believe in ghosts or some form of spirit world. They believe there are entities that are beyond our physical realm.
And like kind of intangible.
They're intangible. They manifest. You have, in the middle, in the Sahara Desert areas, you have the jinn in the Middle East, too. Very powerful spirits. And granted, they don't necessarily call them ghosts. Many cultures I deal with, they don't use the term ghost, but they are manifestations of something.
I was gonna say, especially in like Asia.
Oh, Asia's got tons of that.
Hundreds, thousands of.
Oh my God, India.
For every little thing.
Yeah, there's something that's possessed, because everything is infused with a spiritual double. Yeah. That's your animistic view. And in our society too, in my encounters, and I've had the poltergeist stuff more than anything. I don't really see dead people. I don't want to either, so make that clear. But I have caught EVPs one time, and which I couldn't explain. I had audio engineers analyze it. Where did this voice come from? I mean, I go that scientific route. And the paranormal community that I'm trying to study, I want to know, well, okay, you're driven to prove this stuff or to collect evidence, and there's some evidence that I think is that it's bogus, it's fake. I'd say the majority of it is no. I can write it, I can explain it, but there's that small percent. I cannot explain that weird light. It's not bokeh, and it's not all these effects you can get with a camera. I can't explain the EVPs on the audio, which hopefully you've picked some up. And if you do, let me know. You better be talking. And I can't explain like the weird stuff that's been going on in this house, like the closet door that blew off, flew across the room, and my cat's little medicine box that was tipped up sideways.
Yeah, it could totally come back, and we can. I gotta wrap it up.
I know, but I'm just saying,
I could totally come back and we can do.
I'm full of stories. I'm sorry.
No, I love it.
But you can come and do more.
We'll do part 2.
Yeah, that would be. But then, look at that. It's getting dark already.
I know.